Had he taken the field alone, that hut would have been raided, for Foxy knew the manners of his quarry. But Providence moved Mr. Prout, whose school name, derived from the size of his feet, was Hoofer, to investigate on his own account, and it was the cautious Stalky who found the track of his pugs on the very floor of their lair one peaceful afternoon, when Stalky would fain have forgotten Prout and his works in a volume of Surtees and a new briar-wood pipe. Crusoe, at sight of the footprint, did not act more swiftly than Stalky. He removed the pipes, swept up all loose match-ends, and departed to warn Beetle and McTurk. But it was characteristic of the boy that he did not approach his allies till he had met and conferred with little Hartop, president of the Natural History Society, an institution which Stalky held in contempt. Hartop was more than surprised when the boy meekly, as he knew how, begged to propose himself, Beetle, and McTurk as candidates, confessed to a long smothered interest in first flowerings, early butterflies, and new arrivals, and volunteered, if Mr. Hartop saw fit, to enter on the new life at once. Being a master, Hartop was suspicious, but he was also an enthusiast, and his gentle little soul had been galled by chance-heard remarks from the three, and specially Beetle. So he was gracious to that repentant sinner, and entered the three names in his book. Then, and not till then, did Stalky seek Beetle and McTurk in their house form-room. They were stowing away books for a quiet afternoon in the firs, which they called the Wuzzy. "All up," said Stalky serenely. "I spotted Heffy's fairy feet round our hut after dinner. Blessing, they're so big." "Confounded, you hide our pipes," said Beetle. "Oh, no, left him in the middle of the hut, of course." "What a blind ass you are, Beetle. Do you think nobody thinks but yourself?" "Well, we can't use the hut any more. Hoofer will be watching it." "Bother, likewise blow," said McTurk thoughtfully, unpacking the volumes with which his chest was cased. The boys carried their libraries between their belt and their collar. "Nice job. This means we're under suspicion for the rest of the term." "Why, all that Huffy has found is a hut. He and Foxy will watch it. It's nothing to do with us, only we mustn't be seen that way for a bit." "Yes, and where else are we to go?" said Beetle. "You chose that place too, and I wanted to read this afternoon." Stalky sat on a desk, drumming his heels on the form. "You're a despondent brute, Beetle. Sometimes I think I shall have to drop you altogether. Did you ever know your Uncle Stalky forget you yet? His rebus infectis. After I'd seen Heffy's man-tracks marching round our hut, I found little Hartop, districto ense, waving a butterfly net. I conciliated Hartop, told him that you'd read papers to the bug hunters if he'd let you join, Beetle. Told him you liked butterflies, Turkey. Anyhow, I soothed the Hartoffles, and we're bug hunters now." "What's the good of that?" said Beetle. "Oh, Turkey, kick him." In the interests of science, bounds were largely relaxed for the members of the Natural History Society. They could wander, if they kept clear of all houses, practically where they chose, Mr. Hartop holding himself responsible for their good conduct. Beetle began to see this as McTurk began the kicking. "I'm an arse, Stalky," he said, guarding the afflicted part. "Pax, Turkey, I'm an arse." "Don't stop, Turkey. Isn't your Uncle Stalky a great man?" "Great man," said Beetle. "All the same, bug hunting's a filthy business," said McTurk. "How the deuce does one begin?" "This way," said Stalky, turning to some Fagg's lockers behind him. "Fags are dabs at natural history. Here's young Braybook's botany case." He flung out a tangle of decayed roots and adjusted the slide. "Gives one no end of a professional air, I think. Here's Clay Minor's geological hammer. Beetle can carry that. Turkey, you'd better covet a butterfly net from somewhere." "I'm blowed if I do," said McTurk simply with immense feeling. "Beetle, give me the hammer." "All right, I'm not proud. Chuck us down that net on top of the locker, Stalky." "That's all right. It's a collapsible jamboree, too. Beastly luxurious dogs, these fags are, built like a fishing rod. 'Pon my sainted Sam, but we look the complete bug hunters. Now, listen to your Uncle Stalky. We're going along the cliffs after butterflies. Very few chaps come there. We're going to leg it, too. You'd better leave your book behind." "Not much," said Beetle firmly. "I'm not going to be done out of my fun for a lot of filthy butterflies." "Then you'll sweat horrid. You'd better carry my Jorax. 'Twon't make you any hotter." They all sweated, for Stalky led them at a smart trot west away along the cliffs under the furze hills, crossing comb after gauzy comb. They took no heed to flying rabbits or fluttering fritillaries, and all that Turkey said of geology was utterly unquotable. "Are we going to Clovelly?" he puffed at last, and they flung themselves down on the short, springy turf between the drone of the sea below and the light summer wind among the inland trees. They were looking into a comb half full of old high firs in gay bloom that ran up to a fringe of brambles and a dense wood of mixed timber and hollies. It was as though one half the comb were filled with golden fire to the cliff's edge. The side nearest to them was open grass, and fairly bristled with notice boards. "Ferocious old cove, this," said Stalky, reading the nearest. "Prosecuted with the utmost rigour of the law, G.M. Dabney, Colonel J.P. And all the rest of it. Don't seem to me that any chap in his senses would trespass here, does it?" "You've got to prove damage before you can prosecute for anything. Can't prosecute for trespass," said McTurk, whose father held many acres in Ireland. "That's all rot." "Glad of that, because this looks like what we wanted. Not straight across, Beetle, you blind lunatic. Anyone could spot us half a mile off. This way, and furl up your beastly butterfly net." Beetle disconnected the ring, thrust the net into a pocket, shut up the handle to a 2-foot stave, and slid the cane ring round his waist. Stalky led inland to the wood, which was perhaps a quarter of a mile from the sea, and reached the fringe of the brambles. "Now, we can get straight down through the firs and never show up at all," said the tactician. "Beetle, go ahead and explore. Beastly stink of fox somewhere." On all fours, save when he clung to his spectacles, Beetle wormed into the gorse, and presently announced between grunts of pain that he had found a very fair fox track. This was well for Beetle, since Stalky pinched him a tergo. Down that tunnel they crawled. It was evidently a highway for the inhabitants of the combe, and to their inexpressible joy ended at the very edge of the cliff, in a few square feet of dry turf walled and roofed with impenetrable gorse. "By gum, there isn't a single thing to do except lie down," said Stalky, returning a knife to his pocket. "Look here." He parted the tough stems before him, and it was as a window opened on a far view of Lundy, and the deep sea sluggishly nosing the pebbles a couple of 100 feet below. They could hear young jackdaws squawking on the ledges, the hiss and jabber of a nest of hawks somewhere out of sight, and with great deliberation Stalky spat on the back of a young rabbit sunning himself far down where only a cliff rabbit could have found foothold. Great grey and black gulls screamed against the jackdaws. The heavy-scented acres of bloom round them were alive with low nesting birds, singing or silent as the shadow of the wheeling hawks passed and returned, and on the naked turf across the combe rabbits thumped and frolicked. "Whew, what a place! Talk of natural history, this is it," said Stalky, filling himself a pipe. "Isn't it scrumptious? Good old sea." He spat again approvingly and was silent. McTurf and Beetle had taken out their books and were lying on their stomachs, chin in hand. The sea snored and gurgled. The birds, scattered for the moment by these new animals, returned to their businesses, and the boys read on in the rich, warm, sleepy silence. "Hullo, here's a keeper," said Stalky, shutting Handley Cross cautiously and peering through the jungle. A man with a gun appeared on the skyline to the east. "Confound him, he's going to sit down." "He'd swear we were poaching too," said Beetle. "What's the good of pheasants' eggs? They're always addled too." "Might as well get up to the wood, I think," said Stalky. "We don't want G.M. Dabney, Colonel J.P., to be bothered about us so soon. Up the wuzzy and keep quiet. He may have followed us, you know." Beetle was already far up the tunnel. They heard him gasp.